Hi, I'm Jessica, and in this video, I'm going to give you a brief overview of the most common journal paper structure, the IMRAD format. Without structure, your paper collapses under disorganized ideas, is more difficult to read, content is difficult to link, and without structure, your paper might obfuscate patterns that could help you strengthen your conclusions. The most commonly used journal paper structure is referred to as IMRAD. This comprises an introduction, methods, results, and discussion sections. So results can also be called findings, and I often refer to them as that. So just consider them interchangeable. Many of you will already be quite familiar with this type of structure, and for those of you who are not, welcome to the club. I want to reiterate that the IMRAD structure is not the only way to organize your journal paper. However, it is by far the most commonly used, so let me give you an overview of what comprises each section. Beginning with the introduction, which starts as conceptually as an inverted pyramid going from general to specific. First, an introductory paragraph or paragraphs introducing the general topic of investigation. The next part would be a review of the literature, which is the scholarly discourse, including gaps, and then ending with a statement of hypothesis, or better yet, your argument in relation to the above. The next section will be the methods, which is a description of the study with enough detail to replicate it. I always think of this section as the instructions sheet. Different topics that need to be covered in this section include, of course, your methods or methodological design, your procedures, materials and instruments, the experiment, context and setting, and population or sample. These do not have to be in this particular order, but enough description should be included covering each of these topics. The next section is the results or findings section, which is a specific description of the results and can include tables and graphs. Finally, the discussion section, which is conceptually a pyramid moving from specific results to general. So starting with specifically a discussion of the validity of the methods and findings, and this can be followed by a conclusion which places the research in the context of scholarly literature. So in very brief summary, the introduction answers, what is your topic? Methods answer, how did you do it? Results or findings answer, what did you find? And discussion answers, why does it matter? Some journals end with a conclusion as a separate section. Some also include a section specifically describing the context, separate from the methods, or a theoretical framework, or there could be, after the results, before the or after the discussion, perhaps a practical application. It really depends on your discipline, your topic, and the journal's requirements. As a side note, recently published papers follow an increasingly rigid structure. Gone are the days of narrative publications. With so many papers published every year, every month even, you should make it easy for your audience to find what they're looking for. If they must read the entire paper to find the one thing they're looking for, they might not read it at all. Notably, readers are becoming more broad and interdisciplinary, and even include those outside the academic tower and participate in the practitioner space. This means that our readers are increasingly less familiar with our specialized fields, and that journals outside our field are increasingly relevant to our own knowledge base. This makes the IMRAD an incredibly useful organizational tool for both readers and authors. The main IMRAD section should be delineated by the main headings Introduction, Methods, Results or Findings, and Discussion. You will need to decide if and which any additional section should be included, such as a conceptual framework, a separate context section, and whether your conclusion is a separate section. You should also start thinking about subsections. Plan for each section to have an introductory paragraph. You can also include a summary paragraph for each section and subsection. In any case, you'll want to include summary or transition sentences to bolster your structure. So remember, headings and subheadings help organize the structure of your paper and orient your reader, and keep you on track as a writer. They can be used to signal the main topics, types of evidence, and to link sections together. A minimum 2 subheadings are required to include a subsection. Third level subheadings are okay, remember a minimum of 2, but fourth level risks following the style of a report. As you begin to frame or outline your paper, keep in mind your core argument. Remember, you aren't trying to put everything into your paper. You may have a lot of extra notes or material that doesn't fit into your overall logic. That's okay. It's proof of your process and could be used for developing future research, another paper, or could find a home in another type of publication, like a book, chapter, or presentation. Park your ideas, those notes, all that other material in a separate document, folder, or notebook for consideration later, after this paper is finished. So to create an overall logic, think about your core argument as your organizing guide. You have a hierarchy of main sections, and under them, subsections, and under them, paragraphs with nothing tangential, everything relating back to your core argument. Papers are not meant to be linear. It's not an A, then B, then C, and therefore D. Papers are meant to be argumentative. You start with D, and the reasons for D are A, B, and C, and that's why D. Here's a different way to think about how to organize your paper. As I said, sections and sections should be organized around your core argument. That's why an outline of your structure is so helpful. So as you organize the main sections, think about how the subsections within each relate to other subsections in the other main sections, and how each of those then relate back to your core argument. If you sit down to write and you find yourself describing the chronology of your project, please stop. A journal paper should revolve around your ideas, not the order in which you arrived at them. Linear writing can make you lose the thread of the entire paper. So I urge you to write piece by piece, building from the inside out and from the outside in, not from beginning to end. Let me take a step back for a moment at the most macro level. Journal papers are typically structured from general to specific and back to general. This is what Eric Hyatt termed the uneven U. It is this idea of moving from abstract ideas to details and then back to abstract ideas. Here are 9 questions to ask yourself and answer, even if briefly or with bullet points, before you begin filling in the contents of your paper. Number 1, what is the central question? 2, why is this question important? 3, what data or variables or evidence are needed to answer this question? 4, what methods are used to get to those data? 5, what analysis must be applied for the data to answer the central question? 6, what data, values, or evidence were obtained? 7, what were the results of the analysis? 8, how did the analysis answer the central question? And 9, what does this answer tell us about the broader field? So if you go through this list and answer each item, you will have effectively filled out answers to your introduction, your methods, your results, and your discussion. I hope you found this video useful. Here are some references and resources.